Good morning. It is 8:39, and Gary did make it in from the highway, so it is time for our Revelstoke Mayor Report with Mayor Gary Sauls. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning, Sean.
Now, we've had a lot going on, so we both know we're going to dive right into the elephant in the room. So I have some questions for you.
Absolutely.
If you're ready. Okay. So my first one is we'll start with the topic of the union.
All right.
So the Financial Post had quoted the rep saying, and this is a portion of the quote,
right.
Our members have been more than patient with the mayor and council, and we have given them every opportunity to do the right thing. So what are they referring to? And was there a request and denial or a request and counteroffer and another denial on their part? So why would the rep state this on the Financial Post?
I'm not exactly sure why the rep would state. Mayor and council don't get involved in the union negotiations. So they never came to me. They never came to council and said, "Hey, this is what we want." So if they're doing their negotiations, it's with our negotiation team. So that's some of our management team, plus a professional who assists us with that sort of thing. So I'm not exactly sure what they're. I don't know what they're talking about at all. Let's put it that way.
Okay, and in terms of a request denial process. This is a guess of mine. I'm not a union member. That I'm assuming that would be private in terms of where they're at in a negotiation or what's been denied or approved or I guess wouldn't be approved.
That's correct.
Okay.
And so I'm not privy to that information at this point.
Okay. So that request or that statement is not necessarily in connection to you or council.
That's correct.
Okay. I do think that it's important to recognize that even though these two issues, these hot topic issues as of this week are about finances and an increase in wages, that they are in fact completely separate matters and the parallels being made are not really fair in comparison. Now, with that said, you must understand where the community's coming from with the comparisons, maybe not understanding those lines and the parallels within them. And this upping of the
remuneration.
Thank you.
Yep.
And denying or delaying any union workers' increase.
So these are two separate issues. They're not even in the same ballpark. The council is talking about remuneration for council. Our management staff has been talking with the union. Their contract had ended in 2018. I know there was some reaching out by our staff with that, and there had been some delays, and the delays are not always on the city's perspective. So I'm just going to leave that there.
Okay.
Having saying that, I know that the reps are tying that together. I've heard some reports that, it's because council's doing this that we want more of this and on and on. They are two separate issues, and I will get into what the council remuneration amount of money per year will do that, but I'll get into that in a bit.
Okay.
So the one statement that I will make with the union, and this is coming from our union reps, is basically we continue to bargain or continue to negotiate a fair collective agreement with our employees. So they're working with, their two teams are working together. As you've heard, they voted for a strike, and when they do that, then there's some stuff that goes on where they start to bargain and get right down to things. So.
Okay. Now, there's no way to, at this point, then look at the total amount taxpayers would be on the hook for that increase because they don't have any numbers that are solid yet.
Yeah, and so we know what other communities have come up with and negotiated and whatnot, and so we're hoping that it will be similar. But I at this point in time, I can't put the cart before the horse and say this is what we're going to do.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's fair enough. And that's what I wanted to talk about in terms of the union and just sort of cover that.
Sure.
So the other topic that I have is the RMR tax break. Right. Now, it seems that this is either just slid under the media radar, but as us, meaning taxpayers, I'm asking this, are we now on that hook for the $500,000 difference because of the change in the land title for the portion of the property?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yep. That's the fact. So what happens is they go to BC Assessment, say we're not happy with the classification that you've put on us.
Okay.
So they would have been classified under commercial because a lot of the rooms are being rented out as hotel rooms. And so they go back and say, no, this room, this room, this room, and however they work it, no, they're privately owned or whatever the case may be. So we want you to reclassify them as residential. And so we get tipped off by BC Assessment that this application has been made, and it's happened several years in a row. So for most of the years, we put that money aside. And then in the last year, BC Assessment had said to our staff, it's not likely that they're going to win. So we didn't put all the money aside, and hence there we are stuck because they did win. So, hindsight's perfect.
Now, I think there was some confusion. Is there any land that was being put into agricultural land for the bees? Was that part of it? That
was part. That's not what this part is about. But there was some in
section.
Past years. There was other things that have been done, and so lots of negotiation back. I don't know all the details, but I mean, they did get a portion of their land where the bees are, but not as much, I believe, as they wanted.
I do remember seeing on the check requisition reports that there was money from the city back to Alpine Village Holdings, which it caught my eye because that's where I am right now. We are both sitting in there. So your thought is Alpine Village Plaza. Why is there money going there? But it's not. Plaza is here where we're at now, and then there's Holdings, which of course caught my eye. And I thought, that's weird. Why would they be paying that kind of money to a mall? So that's where it kind of caught my eye several years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the RMR tax situation. So that $500,000, is that a continual cost that we're going to have to?
No, that's for one. That's for the one.
A one-shot thing.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So maybe it's like $66 a person. If you want to,
you must have done the math. I have not.
I did a kind of number. I just want to know what I'm paying.
Of course, it makes sense.
It's $66. It's not going in my gas tank now. That's how I view things because I'm super cheap, as my dad calls me. Gary, I wanted to ask you, obviously, about the elephant in the room, and that was Steve Cross stepping down on Tuesday. So we know what happened. We know why he's established why on all the mediums in town. So we kind of know what's happening as to where he feels and why. So I would like to know your honest thoughts, and I'm just going to give you the platform to respond, speak, and say what you think is important to say.
Sure. All right. First of all, I was disappointed that Mr. Cross decided to take this action and step down. Surprised, and yet not surprised. If we do a sports analogy, we all play sports, and sometimes we win and sometimes we lose, but we carry on. But you never win when you pick up your ball and go home. You never get a chance to play again. So those are the sorts of things that kind of are frustrating to the community. It's upsetting for council. It's upsetting for staff. He made a decision based on what he feels is correct, and I'm not going to fault him for that. That's his decision. But now we move on. So, we will have to do a by-election within 6 months and move on from there. The issue that he decided to leave on was about council remuneration. The fact of the matter is we still have to go out to public when we do the tax distribution. We need to do that next, and then go out to the public for a couple of weeks and get input. So there would have been time to deal with that and remediate if that was what the council needed to do or wanted to do, that sort of thing. And that option is still there and open. But Councillor Cross had decided to make this decision and left. And so now we carry on.
When I was chatting with him the other day, and I'm sure you heard the interview, I brought up the mall situation from the past. And he had a response, and that response was that this was a part of his personal convictions, which again, you even said you don't fault, and that's fine.
Right.
You were a part of the mall, and you were pitted against our mayor at the time, and there was some controversy there, and there was tensions, and I'm sure it was not awesome, to be honest with you. And you guys still continued on and moved forward, and there's people in this town that are still PO'd about that. Well, others are thankful for it. So it seems to me that no matter what, a decision will be made, and you're going to, at least half the town is going to just shake their head and probably look at you differently.
Sure, and so we've taken some personal kicks. My wife and I were ostracized after the mall, even going into some of the merchant shops, that sort of thing. And yet, in others, it was a hurrah sort of thing. It is what it is. That's what politics is like in a small community. People have their opinions. If you were to sometimes question their opinions or their statements that they do on social media, they might back off a bit. But for the most part, everybody's entitled to their opinions. Those of us who've been given this gift from the community to run for council and be on council, we don't take that lightly. And so I'm not going to please everyone, but I'm serious about what I do, and I'm going to be here for the long haul and make sure that we do what needs to be done for the community as a whole. There's going to be speed bumps. There's going to be ruts in the road, and there's going to be crashes. And we're going to do the best that we can do and try to get it as right as we can, as many times as we can.
I want to ask you an honest question about the pay increase. Now, this was proposed by Councillor Yonker.
Correct.
And it was based on, and I could be wrong, but I think I'm correct, and he'll correct me if I am, that he learned of this from other markets and understood that we were behind the times.
Correct, yes.
If the McKee Council and the Raven Council and the ones prior to that, when I moved here, it was Dave Raven at the time.
Right.
If you guys had done increases all along, smaller amounts, and it accumulated to $25,000 for council as of today and $60,000 or whatever the number is, again, for mayor, would you think this would even be an issue? Or is it just because all of a sudden it's such a fast increase and such a huge jump when you look at it in percentages?
Yeah, when you look at it in percentages, it looks like it's an incredible jump. So I just want to give some history on that. In 2007 was the last major raise for council. Then nothing at all until 2012. And then it went up 24% at that point. And then again, nothing until 2016, where council went up $1,000 a year and the mayor went up $2,000 a year. And hence we are now 2020. And so the percentages that are quoting are like 147% or something like that. It actually works out to 21% per year for the next 3 years. And that equates to $4 per household per year. If we include CPP, EI, and WCB, it now works out to $5.50 per average household per year. And that's what we're talking about. That is the whole amount. That this whole kerfuffle is over that amount. And in my mind, that's a small amount. So now if we were to determine how many hours a counselor puts in, then we can find out how much they get paid per hour. So my wife and my colleague at the funeral home calculated my hours that I put in at City Hall and the meetings and whatnot that I do on an average week. And I'm pretty close to 50 hours a week. And so we equate that to the pay that I'm getting now. I'm now getting $10 an hour for my efforts for the community. I think that's pretty minimal. And that's why I've been supportive of this increase, because it equates to just a small amount per year. So one fancy coffee per year for the households in the community, and the council will have their pay.
I was thinking about the fact that now we have to have this by-election.
Yes.
And I think and this is just my own personal thought, is that when you have an election, there's a buzz about it, because then there's there's a number of seats on the table. You know, we're all kind of playing that game. But now there's just one spot.
Right.
And people are now, you guys are a year and a half in, we're into it. People are that maybe thought about running are now doing other things now. They're giving their time to their community in other ways, or whatever that they're passionate about, and their family.
Right.
So trying to find one person out of the woodwork that has the time and is okay with the pay, meaning it's not exactly a full-time job, of course, if it's for a counselor. Right? I think it's 15,000, Steve said, so that's not a ton. And that probably would make sense, that somebody has maybe retired or has enough finances in their life where, maybe they don't have to have a 9-to-5 job, where they have a bit more flexibility. I don't know how many people in town have that. I can't speak to that, but I do feel like that might be hard to find.
It may be hard to find, and so we're going to put out kind of what we're expecting from that person who comes forward, and we'll get some proper advertising and whatnot out, and converse with people who may be interested in that. It is a commitment. There's no doubt about that. As you know, I still run my business full time, so my days get to be long, and it's not uncommon for me to put in 16-hour days. And so that's not going to be for the council, or for the councillor for the most part, unless, of course, they have a business and they're entrenched in their business and still have to do. And that's what many of our councillors already have. They have other work and that sort of thing. And they are putting in long hours. There's no doubt about it. So there will be, I will be asking when people come forward that they have the time commitment and they understand the situation as we move forward.
Now, I have no doubt that when this was proposed, it was not done out of malice. It was not done as Mr. Burns would, with his fingers up and excellent. I don't think it was the design.
No.
I saw a few posts about lining pockets. I heard that before, too. So I'm asking you honestly, you've been here a long time. You've built up a business. I can't assume this, but you could very well be okay financially. I don't know. But you've done well for yourself on your own with Christy for many years. So this is not about the income, I would imagine. But the optics looks crappy. It does.
Sure, of course.
But how are you honestly taking it in your personal life? Because some of the comments even I read have gone, that's why I would never put my name into the ring ever, ever. So
it there's no doubt about it. It hurts. It is really hard on our families.
Yeah.
And, it really hits my wife hard when there's social media posts that are from people that she thought were her friends that, want to impeach the mayor or that sort of thing as we move forward. Those sorts of things really hit home. This sort of thing has really hit home for Councillor Juncker when, he has people coming in his store yelling and screaming at him and being belligerent and saying expletives and that sort of thing. I was crossing the street day before yesterday, and the guy came through a stop sign, and I looked up, and he just missed me, but he was grinning from ear to ear. And so I know that it was probably intentional. Is there a message there? I don't know what the message would be. And I look at those things and say, I'm here for the long haul. I'm here to do the best for the community. We still have to negotiate all this budget stuff as we go out to the community. People will be able to put their input in, but put it in a proper consensus and not just using a thing. We're in the middle of the winter. It's a heavy winter. People are upset. They're tired of shoveling snow, all that sort of thing, and they take it out on things. And I kind of believe at times that city council is easy to take it out on. Pick on them because it's we can hide behind our keyboards and do whatever. But for those who have concerns about that, I'm just saying, yes, I'm in support of the raise. This is what it amounts to: $5.50 per household per year on average, and it's not a big thing. If the council's decision is ultimately that they're not going to go forward with this, then it's not going to go forward, and as simple as that. At present time, including what we've got here for a potential tax increase, we're proposing around 6%. That includes 4.5% for the debt, 1.5% to keep our services as they are, and that includes the council remuneration. That works out to not quite $10 a month for the average home, $450,000 home. So, it's not a big increase. However, when we start batting around all these percentages, everybody gets scared because they don't know what that's going to mean. And really, I'm just giving out the information that I'm getting from our chief financial officer. This is where we're at. This is what it looks like. It's all proposed. We still have to weigh it and move forward.
This might not be able to be answered because it's sort of off the cuff here, but you mentioned that when there was an increase in 2007 to 2012.
Yeah.
Was that brought up and presented just at the tail end of that council's term?
That I'm not aware of.
Okay. I'm just curious to know if when that was presented, was it in the middle of a run, or was it, there's only a year left and it's for the next council? Because then that historically we might go, this happened in the past and we haven't looked at that yet.
Yeah. And I
not just a pretty face, you know.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Well, is there anything else that I missed that you think is really important for the community to know, to hear, to clarify on based on the rhetoric that's been going out, the different opinions, and anything that's just important for you to say?
Well, I think, just in dealing with the QP employees, our staff are going to be honest with them and go forward. They've been presented, amounts and they'll have to deal with that. We're supportive of making sure that they have good wages. They're comparing it with council, but they've been getting 1.7 to 3% increase per year, every year for several years, and council has remained without very much. And if you're going to compare, but you really can't compare. Our city employees make good money in comparison to other communities around the area. They make better than that, and I'm not exactly sure what the dollar figure is, but I do know that they're being paid well for the work that they're doing. So,
Gary, thanks for coming in and clarifying your stand on what happened over the last week from City Hall.
Great. Thanks, Sean.